gets better. Say that it gets better. O-P-S, I'm gay-ish.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish.
The podcast that's an oddcast.
How long did you work on that one?
You know, it was a real quick workshop session today in my brain, and we just landed where we landed, and that's how things go sometimes.
Whew. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
We're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality, and today we're going to talk about games.
Gaymers.
Gamers.
With a Y. There's a Y in there.
Gamers with a Y.
Y-A-G.
Wait, why?
And then if you go backwards, it's Y-M-E-R-S.
Okay, great.
I wanted to spell it from the middle.
All right, well, okay. And we're going to have a guest.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a guest, Matt Baume. He does a podcast. He does lots of gay things, including, like, YouTube videos. YouTube videos, gentlemen. He does a podcast called The Sewers of Paris. He has a Drag Queens and Dungeons and Dragons podcast. So he's
called Dungeons and Drag Queens, right?
Yeah.
Great.
That sounds right. It's something to that effect.
We can ask him about it.
And he is very into the gaming community. So we'll be talking to him a little bit more about gamers, where I don't really feel like I know too much. So other than my research that I did. So
yeah, your extensive research.
Yes. I spent one more minute on it than I did on my opener.
But first, some news.
Oh, wait.
What?
No.
Okay.
Well, newsflash. Thanks to Kendra Thompson. That's one piece of news. I guess.
Kendra seems like a female name.
Yeah.
She did not provide her pronouns. But...
Nor did we ask.
Right.
Kendra is a person that I assume I didn't even ask if this person is a person. Anyway, thanks, Kendra, for your donation on Patreon. We appreciate it. You're helping us stay on Patreon.
Mediocre
medium
quality
to good. Just like my steaks.
Yep.
Okay, that was my news. Do you want to say news?
Okay, I'm going to say news.
Okay.
First of all, Kamala Harris. We're going to practice saying her name. Kamala.
I saw you post on
Harris.
Facebook how to pronounce it, and I was like, great, now I can revise how I'm saying it in my head, because it's not like I was saying Kamala. Okay.
Lots of people say Kamala. They are incorrect. Please fix it now before she becomes leader of the free world. Kamala Harris.
She's going to rule Australia?
I don't think they're free. They're still like...
They're still trapped on that island?
Yeah.
They Lost was about Australia. Okay, great. Kamala
Harris, who is... junior senator from California, and she is going to be running for president in 2020. She announced it today, which is Martin Luther King Day. And already there is, first of all, I heart her.
Okay, I don't know that much about her except California.
Every time I hear her speak, it makes me want to hug her. Mm-hmm. And Ellen likes her. Sold.
The decider has decided.
But apparently there's some pushback on her trans rights record.
Oh, I saw something about this, and okay.
Yeah, so she was the Attorney General of the state of California for 6 years, from 2010 to 2016, when she left that position to join the U.S. Senate, which is where she is now. And so the decision that's getting the most flack, she argued against the rights of two prisoners that were being held by the California Department of Corrections, saying that they should not be allowed to have gender reassignment surgery. And argued that in court because, as Attorney General, that's what you do.
Not be allowed to, or like funded by the government?
In 2015, trans inmates Shiloh Quine and Michelle Lael Norsworthy were prescribed gender confirmation surgery, only for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to refuse to cooperate. A U.S. district judge ordered the state to allow Norsworthy, who was in prison for second-degree murder, to have the surgery. Harris appealed the decision to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. She said that denying her surgery did not break the Eighth Amendment, which is the no cruel and unusual punishment part of the Constitution. Basically, that by keeping this woman imprisoned and not letting her transition, that was cruel and unusual punishment, was the argument. And Kamala Harris said, No.
And keeping her in a prison that was a men's prison, right? I think, like, she had to stay in the, like, not let her in the women's prison.
That's a good question. That I don't know.
I might have read that, or it maybe is something unrelated.
Well, so here's the... I mean, I think that we've made it clear that we're allies. I'm an ally. I think. Like, we fucked some stuff up, but I'm an ally of trans people.
Yeah.
I tried pretty hard, I think, to look out for them and say the right things and do the right things and put out the right message and be a good ally.
It seems like there's something coming after this.
I hope that this does not compromise that, when I think at least this case does not an anti-trans person who shouldn't get the nomination make.
Why do you think that?
I think because the law is very much like I am, in that it's black and white, and it doesn't matter what you think or what you feel or what you believe. If you are a good lawyer, if you are a good judge, it is black and white. And I think that if her responsibility under state law was to prosecute this case and take that position, and I think that doesn't mean that she's anti-trans and hates them. And in fact, her record on trans stuff has been exemplary since becoming a member of the U.S. Senate.
Gotcha.
And I think that we lose the nuance of what's going on. Like, a person is, for whatever reason, put in a position where they have to argue devil's advocate style the quote unquote wrong side of history. I don't think that makes them a bad person, and I don't think it disqualifies them from president.
I guess I have a little bit different view in that I don't think it disqualifies them. I think looking at the bigger context of their trans history, which I haven't seen, but I know you know Kamala more, much more than I do, but I actually would say that probably most lawyers and legal professionals would say that the law is not black and white. In fact, there's lots of interpretation that has to be done of very gray, or like it seems straightforward, but then when you go to interpret it, that's why we have the entire legislative branch, because it is not that black and white. So that's why we need the courts and to look back at rulings to help us make those decisions. Sure. And so, I still agree that, like, taking this in context with her bigger views is important. And it's also okay for... I clearly don't know the headline of this and not really all the details, but it's okay for her to have fucked up. If she made the wrong call, it's okay for her to have made those mistakes. So I think it's so new that, like, it's worthwhile to stick with, hear what she says about it. Hopefully she'll be asked about it, or,
Yeah, and I definitely, I'm the type of person that has not chosen sides irreconcilably or irretrievably. Like, if more evidence floats to the surface that suggests that she's a horrible bigot that hates queer people, then, she's going to lose my vote. And I want to push back on just one little thing. You're right that the law isn't black and white. That's why we argue it. Otherwise, we could just have computers adjudicate everything. Yeah. It's not that simple. And if you're the attorney general of a state, and that state is sued, it is your job to represent the state in court. So if these prisoners, under a policy, were denied transition surgery and they sued the state, it is her job to defend the state, regardless of her personal feelings.
Man, I have such a hard time with even myself, like, doing things that I don't necessarily like, helping marketing for an organization that sells guns or gun supplies. Anyway, so I wrestle with that myself, much less with other people I see. So
we'll continue to follow this story and see what's up. And
a long presidential run, I'm sure, up ahead. So there'll be plenty of time.
Let's see. Next, apparently there are some high schools in the U.S. that are being studied that are blocking LGBT plus advocacy websites in their libraries and on their intranets. Wi-Fi. Their Wi-Fi. But
is it because they're saying it's porn? It's categorized on the porn filter?
So one school said, we've just blocked all websites under the category of alternative sexual lifestyles.
Oh, fuck. Okay, there's some that I saw that, none of this is any good, so there's no good excuse. Some that, just put the word gay or lesbian as porn.
Right.
because that's all they can imagine, a kid looking at gay porn. So
right, exactly. And I don't know. I don't know. So the problem is further compounded by the fact that a lot of hate groups are not blocked by the same policies. So they're finding that I'm trying to find the list of places that were allowed through, at least in Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana had blocked Human Rights Watch, had blocked GLAAD, and then but had allowed through.
I'm waiting for you to say like KKK or something.
Oh, churches that are on the list of hate groups.
Oh,
things like Westboro Baptist Church are fine because they're churches, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting. People seem to love to hate the ACLU unless you
want rights defended.
My very conservative friends back home call it the ACL Jew, which is just horrible.
It kind of reinforces the need for a group that defends the rights of minorities.
Exactly. Anyway, they are taking this to court, saying that it has violated the students' First Amendment rights to free speech and stopped them from accessing support for whatever they're going through personally. That is important. I really want them to be able to get information, access information. Yeah.
The way they need it, because those are the people that are most vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So should we take a break?
Yeah. We are going to take a break, and then we'll be back with Matt Baume.
Yeah. Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Break. Shut up, Kyle.
You shut up.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're back. We are here with Matt Baume. Welcome. Hi. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Who are you? Why do we care? Where'd you come from?
I ask myself that in the mirror every day. So I'm a Seattle-based podcaster like you. I do a number of shows. I do The Sewers of Paris. It's a podcast where I talk to queer people about entertainment that's changed their lives. I do another show called Queens of Adventure, starring drag queens on a Dungeons and Dragons quest. And I have a YouTube series called Culture Cruise, where I look at queer representation on TV and in movies. And gosh, what else do I do? I have another YouTube series called Weekly Debrief, where I review the week's queer news. And I think that's all the big ones for now.
You have a book.
Yeah.
You Defining Marriage. Mm-hmm. And then in the Seattle area, I feel like a lot of people just know you because you're like at so many events taking pictures and posting those. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
We're going to talk about, well, I guess I had definitively said Gaymers with a Y, but it might be queer people that play video games or video game.
It's not as convenient as a term. Like queer, like even if you like short, like just queer gamers. It's not as fun as Gamers with a Y.
Yeah, it's like that's clever, and then it's like easier to say than everything else you could come up with. But I'll actually mention that a little bit in my section. Before we do that, it seems like everything that you cover talks about like gay or queer perspective on entertainment or. I mean, gaming, entertainment, like those kind of areas.
Yeah,
media. That's what draws you to that?
You know, that's a good question. There's a couple answers. One is like the awkwardly personal one, which is that growing up, we didn't have a lot of like contemporary culture in my house. Like we just did not. It was a lot of Nick at Night, but it wasn't like we weren't listening to pop music on the radio. We didn't go to a lot of movies. We didn't watch sitcoms and shows that were on. We watched old stuff. And so, like one of those, kids who isn't allowed to eat candy, like when they go to their friend's house and there's candy there, they just want to binge. And that's how I am about entertainment. I just love the way that we talk to each other and make up stories and stuff. In part, I think, because I didn't have a lot of it growing up. So
was that because of your parents?
You know, it was a little bit because of my parents, because that was what their preference was. Like, we get in the car and we listen to NPR, and that's just how it is. Yeah. But it was also me, like, as a kid, I don't talk about this much, but actually, as a kid, I was deeply opposed to going to movie theaters. Something about movie theaters was super unsettling to me. So I went to, I'm trying to think, Neverending Story Part 2 when I was probably like 8 maybe, or maybe 9 or 10. And then there was like a long drought basically until I was 17 or so, with brief punctuations in there for like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I think I saw Fern Gully in theaters.
Wow.
But I distinctly remember like not going to see Aladdin. Like it was a big deal. Everybody was going to see Aladdin. I was like, I can't. It's in a movie theater.
Okay, maybe a topic is now changed to movie theaters, and we're going to analyze this issue with you.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wait, why? What do you feel when you go to a movie theater? Like,
I've come at this from a lot of angles, and I really don't know what the answer is. One of it is that like it's very easy for me to be empathetic. Now that sounds like what a brag, but you know, I'm sort of like the Counselor Troy of like the work that I do, in that I. To a fault, I think sometimes put myself in the shoes of whatever I'm watching, and so it's very stressful for me to watch a movie where everything is so heightened and like I'm doing feelings. But I think there's what's also going on there is the separation from the world that happens in a theater, because it's such a womb and it's such a like sort of mind control experience of like everyone's looking at the same image and we're all receiving the same message at the same time, and like the rest of the world is just blacked out and doesn't exist anymore. And I think that made me feel uncomfortable in the same way that clowns make me uncomfortable. That there's a singular emotional valence being projected, and the audience is sort of the captive of what is being presented. And what I like about media that we consume, like on the tiny little screens that we have in our pockets, or you know, like TV screens or whatever, is that there's a lot more. It's a lot more of a social thing where you can talk about it and share it and stop and start and like pause and think about it and have very different experiences and different interpretations. But movie theaters still to this day make me feel a little like it's not tense, it's not anxious. But it is sort of a, I don't know, it just feels like I'm being strapped in for like the Apollo mission or something, where we're like, get ready, we're about to go on something intense.
I'm the exact opposite. I feel like if I watch movies at home, it's basically trying to recreate a movie theater. So everyone like, shut up, don't talk. Like talking during a movie I want to watch is one of my biggest pet peeves, and that won't happen. And everything has to be dark, and I want to disconnect and just focus on it.
So I have this giant couch and this big TV,
Yeah.
and everybody comes over for well, lots of stuff. But there's 2 rules. That there is no talking, and you will get the sword if you talk during new Star Trek or new Game of Thrones. Everything else, fine. Pause, chat, go to the bathroom, whatever. But there's an announcement. Get your shit together, and then you get the sword.
That is a challenging experience for me. It's not to say that I can't do it, but it's challenging for me not to want to participate in, like, for me, entertainment and like movies and shows and games and things it's very much about the sharing of it and the discussion, like as it's happening. Like for me, it's much more like a amusement park ride where like when something cool happens, you throw your arms up and yell. And you know, it's I get the appeal like of going into the hypnosis of the screen, but it makes me sort of antsy. Yeah, but nowadays it's crazy because 2 things that are like my livelihood, I've had a strange history with. There's the entertainment, like where I couldn't go to movie theaters for most of my childhood, and then gay marriage. I worked on marriage equality, like literally on the trial. I went to the Supreme Court. I was sitting in the Supreme Court for the argument in the Prop 8 case, and my partner and I of almost 20 years are not married. So you know, I study these things, but very much as an outsider.
Huh.
Interesting.
Well, when you said that you're the Counselor Troy, I was very glad you said that you didn't just have a terrible accent and a lot of camels. So.
That too. Yeah.
I was like, that Brad Pitt movie where he shows his butt. Like I got there eventually because I've seen some Star Trek, but
I'm slowly but surely forcing you to see Next Generation.
Very slowly. It's been slow progress.
I would wear the Counselor Troy bunny suit. I think that would be a cute look.
I assume this is another thing that I don't understand.
she dresses like a Playboy bunny in a lot. For like 4 of the 7 seasons, she's just like hanging out at the grotto is her like uniform. And then like somewhere in season 6 or 7 they were like, oh, actually here you go, you can wear the actual Starfleet uniform. And suddenly she was like a command officer. And I'm sorry, we're going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, but for sure.
Would you say a Playboy bunny hole?
Yes, we're going down the Warren.
Okay. Speaking of people who are viewing the gay media community as an outsider.
Good segue, Kyle. You're getting better.
I don't know. Better than some that I do. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my segment where I'm going to talk a little bit more broadly about gay gaming or queer gaming. So first of all, part of kind of that distinction, or what should we call it, is gamers as a term isn't just for specifically gay people. It is or can be an umbrella term used by lesbians, bisexual, trans, a lot of the same groups that fall into the LGBT or don't, which is why the acronym gets longer and longer. So umbrella term, and it also, as a person that doesn't totally understand this world, I'll just clarify, it's video games or tabletop games.
Yeah.
Tabletop games are things like, sorry.
Risk.
Yeah, you do play that on a tabletop.
Great. Okay. All of this episode is me just going to be looking at both of you and like, is that a true thing? It's going to be fun. Okay. So I usually come with some kind of data. So I'll tell you about the first survey of gamers, which is done by Jason Rockwood. We always get fun last names. Rockwood. He used to be a porn star.
Play some gay games with him.
It was in 2006 was the very first study of, I think it was even the first study of any kind of subculture of the gaming community. And he also is not a gamer, so he is viewing this and studying it as an outsider. He surveyed 10,000 people. The survey itself apparently had lots of issues like bias and questions. Like he'd ask things like, what level of harassment do you face? Or things that are like very leading questions.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily use all of the results. He also even jokes about this in one of his interviews where someone asked, what are the biggest flaws? And he was like, in one of the comments, one of the people said, the design sucks, you noob. You suck. So
Don't read the comments, man.
I think when you do a survey, you kind of have to.
Oh.
It's like the comments of the...
Yeah.
Also, they actually use the word noob, which is funny. That's just like one of the few things I know.
Was it with 2 zeros?
No. Not in the... But I don't know if that's this article...
Oh, yeah. They
writing it, or if they were like, why is this too?
So who is he affiliated with? Or is he just
oh, boy. Okay, you're taking Mike's role of asking me questions I don't know about. He was affiliated with university.
Oh, University College. Yeah, I'm familiar with their work.
The Human Beings? University of Illinois.
Urbana-Champaign.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
And apparently, like after this, he was going to like go to grad school and keep studying it. So he might have done that. I stopped at this, so who knows? He might be dead. A couple of the results that I actually did want to talk about is, first of all, just the term gamer, which, Matt, I think you even mentioned when we were first meeting to just talk about the idea. So apparently 1 in 5 of the respondents didn't even like the use of the term gamer. Wait, no.
Was this term gamer with a Y?
Gamer, yeah, gamer with a Y. Yeah, this isn't coming across gamer. No. Gamer with a Y. No, it's the opposite. 1 in 5 of the respondents supported the use of the term, so most people didn't even like the use of the term.
And were these respondents who were themselves LGBTQ gamers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But not... This is also 2006, so I don't know if it's like caught on more since then or not, but
yeah, I would say like survey results from 2006 would not be particularly applicable to, I mean, they were useful for talking about in like more of a historical context, but there's been a lot of change in the last 13 years in this space.
Okay, I mean, you don't have to tell us all of it, but what are the biggest changes that you've seen since then?
So I would say, another of my many projects is a project called Playing with Pride. And for that, my partner James and I drove around the country and did some international interviews with LGBTQ gamers. This was from, I'd say 2014 to 2017 or so. And so we talk to people who are, just in that space of they're queer and they're gamers, or they work in the industry, or they're allies or whatever. And we talk to them about like their experiences and what they face. And it was an interesting time to be doing that because a lot was changing right around then. There's a lot more representation in games. There was a lot more community that was appearing. I'd say like mid 2000s, like 2006, that was a time when you would have like bulletin boards like Gamer Experimentations and, oh gosh, I'm like thinking way back to what even existed because most of them are gone now. In part because the need for them isn't really as acute. There's a organization called Gamer X that put on some conferences or conferences, gatherings, and so something that's happened in the last 2-ish decades is that we've gone from a place where gays are either invisible or a punchline in games to a place where you could find them in a sort of in the indie space, and now they're like really getting some visibility in mainstream games and AAA games. Like the new Spider-Man game has like a whole thing about like finding rainbow flags, and it really took off. Like you just like swing around New York, or is it New York? It's New York, and just take pictures of the rainbow flags that are hanging all over the city. And I mean, that's huge. That is a game from Sony, which is a massive corporation that publishes games. This
Spider-Man
would not existed. And Spider-Man,
I've heard that. Yeah.
This like it's kind of would be shocking by the standards of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's, I think something that's happened is there's this sort of virtuous cycle of queer gamers finding each other and organizing online. When they do that, they can speak up more loudly about what they want to see from games. Developers can listen to them and be like, oh, we're really neglecting this segment of our consumer base. Let's do better. And they put more content in games. More gamers see that. They find each other. More gamers find each other. And it just keeps going and getting better and better and better and better.
Yeah.
This is a talk I gave at the Game Developers Conference last year about the called Playing with Pride, about like just how much better it's gotten in the last 5 years or so based on these interviews.
Well, that's interesting. One of the things that jumped out at me back to 2006 is that people were talking about like basically what do you want from video games? And LGBT people were like, we don't want like you to put in characters as stereotypes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what we talk about in general on this podcast is actual representation, which includes a broad spectrum of what it means to be LGBT, not just picking stereotypical features or mannerisms to give to certain characters. So since it's changed so much, do you think we're on the right track of actually doing that? Yeah,
I think a lot of good things have happened. There's sort of, when you're talking about like queer characters in games, there's sort of like pre-creme and post-creme. Creme was a character in the game Dragon Age, who is what we would call, this word is never used in the game, but the character is what we would call trans. And this is a game set in a fantasy land of dragons and swords and magic. And there you have a character who, and you are like, you can be 50 hours into the game before you even have a conversation about this. But there's like a line where Krem basically can choose as a non-player character to out himself by making a joke or something about chest binding. And then you can choose as a player to pursue that and ask more questions. And it's sort of like a Trans 101 where you can ask this virtual character all these things about gender expression and gender identity, the questions that trans people are always like getting from straight people, finally, or cis people. And finally, there's like a virtual ask a trans person in this game in like a fantasy land.
That's crazy.
It's incredible. Yeah.
That reminds me of movies where like there are just these hints that queer people can pick up on them being gay, but like chest binding, I don't know that would speak to cis people or that they'd recognize, especially outside the LGBT community, that they would get that's a really trans-specific concern and issue and topic of conversation. Yeah. So that's also recently happened. Overwatch.
Oh, yeah. Soldier 76.
Yes, that was...
and Tracer,
This was as close as I could get to... I saw a big, like, this news story, and I think I tweeted, like, something like, I'm very excited and have no idea why. What I got back from people was it sounded like a super, like, masculine, aggressive, macho-seeming dude is also gay Did I get that right in this?
I mean, that's basically it. Like, Overwatch is in this process of, slowly over time confirming, like, that the cast is entirely queer. I don't know. This is my own, like, story that I'm telling myself, that, like, all the characters except the practice robots are queer in some way. And so far we had, like, a little comic about Tracer that had some details about that. We had something about Soldier 76. And, I think over time that each one is going to have, like, some reveal. I think in reality, probably not, but it's the story that I want to tell myself because they are super queer presenting. Like, all the characters are queer presenting in some way or another.
That's really cool that those, like, options are out there and those storylines are out there.
When you talk about options, I think another thing that's changed or gotten better in the last 10 years is that open world games have become more open, that the choices that you have and the ways that you can interact with the world have gotten a lot freer. And so almost every game, the protagonist at some point has the option of choosing a romantic interest. Yeah. And most big studios are allowing for same-sex romances as much as they are opposite-sex.
It's getting better.
Romances. They're notable exceptions, but like things like in the Bethesda universe of Elder Scrolls. Yeah. The fact that you could choose to hook up with pretty much anybody that you wanted to is something that I don't think we heard much of at all 10 years ago.
No, it was seldom that it happened. It was like a huge deal, like in Fable or something like that.
Fable, yeah.
Or Mass Effect, yeah.
Great. What?
I don't know a lot about this, which is why we have Matt Baume here to explain it all to us.
I would say, like, low barrier to entry on a lot of these games, like Dragon Age. Dragon Age might be the best. I played that with assistance from James, my partner, who is extremely knowledgeable about, like, how to play video games. So it was helpful for me to have a guide there. But, like, games like Overwatch, for example, are relatively easy to jump into and figure out. And yeah, and like the larger ones, like I would say, the first one that just came to mind was the new Breath of the Wild, the new-ish Zelda game. No queer relationships exactly in there, but there is a segment of that game where the character, the hero, spoiler alert for a game that came out like a year and a half ago, the main character has to infiltrate a female-only culture and so must disguise himself as a woman. And that spawned a lot of fan art and headcanon and storytelling that was really lovely and inspiring of, like, this character. Well, what if this character was a woman? Or what if this character was non-binary? And so it's not in the game, but just the fact that it's not in the game doesn't mean that it can't be canon for you. And I think canonicity is a capitalist invention anyway.
Wait, you can't end that was a big statement. Wait, canonicity is a capitalist invention. Say
it's
more.
A construct. No, I think that this it's sort of like rule that we have of like, well, if it's not in the official thing, it's not true. I say this as someone who, for example, has worked I worked for Darth Vader. I worked at Lucasfilm for a couple of years. I've worked for big properties, and those big properties legally own, I'm putting own in quotation marks, these things, but really it's the fans. Like, nobody would care about Star Wars if there weren't like millions of fans who loved it. So it's the fans who I think are really the guardians of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more things that I will throw out there from this survey that I think are relevant is, first of all, the actual respondents on their sexual orientation. The survey dude, Rockwood, I had to look back to make sure I wasn't in my head. I was like, is it Rockwood or did I make up a more sexualized? No, that's okay. So it was, if you chart the people on a scale of heterosexual to homosexual, it was a reverse bell curve. So most people were on either ends of like either leaning more towards the homosexual or more towards the heterosexual sides of the spectrum. But then if you add that up, like, so 45% identified as bisexual, and I think that's like a good
45% of respondents identified as bisexual.
Yeah.
That is surprising for 2006.
I feel like that matches what I've seen in other, like, more broad surveys of LGBT people, like how they identify. I feel like there's way more bisexual people just in the LGBT group. Like, you may think of gay and lesbian, like gay men, lesbian women as like the main ones, right? Or whatever. Like, but bisexual people make up way more of this than expected, and at least to me, in this as well. So yeah, I think that partly goes into like why the word gamer with a Y might not feel right.
Yeah. In addition to like having to spell it every time you say it,
yes,
adds
okay.
to its disadvantages.
As I'm now talking about this on a podcast, now I'm recognizing some of those.
Yeah, it's insufficient for describing the people who it is intended to encompass.
Yeah, which I mean, so was the word gay in general, which is why new things have been invented.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that we have like your choices are basically queer or the acronym, the ever-expanding acronym, and it's just too much of a mouthful to really use inclusively. There's also my favorite of the acronyms is quilt bag.
Oh fuck! Oh, I have strong opinions about this.
I like it because it's cute, but also like nobody knows what that means.
But I hate it because it's stupid. I think it just sounds like a quilt bag. That seems like you're referring to a ball sack or something. Like that doesn't seem like.
This is what I mean by nobody knows what it means. You say that, and like maybe like a fraction of a percentage of the population will recognize that as something queer. And this is why, like, I go to queer. I say queer because I think it's the most everybody of the terms that we have available.
What's quilt bag? What are the letters? Like,
oh boy,
God.
I couldn't even tell you. This is another problem.
Queer.
Is there a U in there?
Unisex.
Unisex
doesn't quite.
That's like a clothing option.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ungendered. The U is getting me.
Yeah.
Dan, what's quilt bag?
Is there a U in LGBTQ if you go out far enough? I don't
Seldom
think there
do I
is.
see the U.
I don't think I've seen a U.
Unspecified?
Undecided.
Undecided.
Oh, okay, it's questioning in LGBTQ. Okay, got it. Anyway.
Intersex, lesbian, trans, bisexual, asexual, gay.
There you go. But queer is easier to say and distresses boomer gays, but oh well.
Yeah. Yeah, how much do we care? Sorry, boomer gays. We care. The last thing I'll leave with, which this quote from Jason Rockwood, I think still applies and is still relevant. He said that gay gamers experience a double-edged sword of prejudice. The mainstream gay culture and media is not supportive of video games. Then you have the video game culture that is not supportive of gay culture. So you have these people stuck in the middle who have this double-edged prejudice.
Yeah.
Do you think that's still is relevant?
That's totally consistent with what we found in our interviews a few years ago. That a lot of people we spoke to said I had to pick one, or we talked to
gay or gamer.
Yeah, we talked to a guy, DJ Kirkland, an artist in San Francisco, who said that he felt like he could either be black or gay or a nerd, but not more than one of those. And that really hurts and it sucks. But it was the case for a long time. I think now a lot has happened to change that. Representation in the games, community, and also sort of a nerd renaissance that's happening right now where it's like just cool to like stuff that was sort of a liability in the past. So it's just kind of assumed that everybody likes, I don't know, the Avengers, for example. So I think that has really changed things. And also I think there's much more in the last few years enthusiasm culture, where it's cool to like stuff in a way that it wasn't in the past, where it was like, sort of an ironic detachment of it's suspicious that somebody, or like worthy of mockery if somebody really loves something.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted that being excited about stuff now is cool.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm really, it's interesting. I see that perspective, and I've always had this thought that people who are nerds are generally more accepting of things that are outside the mainstream, and that it's a bigger tent than society at large for queer people. I don't know, is that just a unique experience on my part?
I think that's like, that is an optimistic read. I do think that like nerds and queer people are both, here's the thing, is have like really similar experiences and often similar values, and it is extremely frustrating when those groups don't listen to each other. I think it's really improved in the last few years, but like in 2015 or 16 or so, when we were talking to people, it was a big issue that you put like something queer in a game and people wouldn't buy it because there's a dwindling minority of people who still say that it's, it's pandering to do that, or that it degrades the game to have inclusive elements in it. But yeah, I think there's sort of a protectiveness that queer people have and that gamers have and that members of other marginalized groups have, where if they perceive that something is challenging what hegemony they enjoy in their margins, then they are, they kind of circle the wagons.
That's not a vocal minority?
I think the minority is growing more minor every day, but I think it was a much bigger issue when this survey happened.
I have some assimilation to do, I guess, to think about that and figure out how I feel. I just always thought band dorks and math nerds and people who are into sci-fi and fantasy all had much easier time accepting people of non-standard sexual orientations.
It would be nice to think so, but like a huge harassment problem in gaming that has been improving, but it doesn't take many experiences where someone uses the slur that you hear when you are about to get beat up to make you feel like you need to get out of this culture.
Oh, sure.
Is that faggot?
Among many others,
okay.
yeah. But
okay.
yeah, like, I mean, this is another thing that we heard from people is like, there's this woman in Las Vegas that we spoke to who joined a Warcraft server. Basically, her son wanted to, he was like a teenager, like 15 or so, wanted to start playing World of Warcraft. And she's, like, okay, let's check this out. So she and her wife, like, got on World of Warcraft just to, like, see, like, is this okay? Like, should we allow our child to play this game? Well, within a few months, they're like all gaming together as a family. They're going on raids together in World of Warcraft. It's really lovely. But she was about to get out of it because every time they got together with a group of people online, often strangers, there would be abuse. And she's like, why am I paying money for this thing where I'm getting harassed? Until she found... I can't remember the gaming community she joined. There were a couple at the time. I think they're still around. The Spreading Taint was one of them, was the name of this group. But there were others. The Rainbow Guild, I think, might have been one. I can't remember now. But anyway, so she joined some groups of other gay gamers, and this is what you had to do at the time, is find your clique, find your niche, and, huddle together for protection. And, in the same way that, like, gay bars used to be much more important for our safety. And now, you don't need the gay bars for the same reasons you used to. You don't need the Spreading Taint in the same way that you used to. It's still nice to have. I still like a gay bar. I still like a space that makes straight people feel uncomfortable. I prefer it. But it's not like, this is our only place to gather in safety.
We all love a Spreading Taint.
I've played WoW off and on for many years, and Proudmoore is the server.
Oh, yeah.
That is the gay server. I think there are others now because it has been full at some times, during its history. And my experience on Proudmoore in World of Warcraft, anyway, go to other servers and there's harassment from some dickhead. But on Proudmoore, if anybody harasses anybody for their sexual orientation, they get shut the fuck down. Like, that's a very well self-policing community. Yeah. And they have a pride march inside the game every year. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And I wonder if it will always be necessary to have a server like that in WoW, or if it's going to go the way of the gay bar of not being quite as necessary.
I think it will always be necessary for us to have reasons to gather, because we will always be rare. We'll always be special and unique in a way that there are not many of us. So the things that set us apart will always exist, and I think our needs will change. But when it comes down to, like, the camaraderie of your family, your chosen family, I don't think that'll ever go away. I just don't think we're going to need, like, Q Patrol, for example, like, or Pink Pistols, or like groups that, like, exist to protect us from attacks. I think challenges from without will wax and wane, and I think we're headed in a good direction at the moment.
Awesome. Well, then, why don't we move, speaking of where we're headed, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about a recent news story involving the gaming community.
Yeah. This is just this weekend, as we're recording. There's this issue going on in England right now. England has become particularly turfy at the moment, where there are a lot of folks who just do not want to recognize that trans is a thing.
Can you quickly define TERF for those who need it?
Yeah. Trans exclusionary radical feminist. These are people who just do not want to grant people the freedom to identify as trans. That they're, if you are, and there's varying levels of hostility and ideology here, but basically what it comes down to is that the belief is it is not possible to be a feminist and support trans people's human rights.
And it seems like it comes back to trans women are men, like that's the
idea,
stem of the belief that okay, sorry, keep going.
There's this one particular British figure, Graham Linehan, who worked on some TV shows for a long time, so he's high profile, and he's been very vocal in being unpleasant, in addition to having made like a really distressing episode of one of his shows where when a character learns that another character is trans, his reaction is disgust and then a fist fight to, it's a violent reaction, which really hits close to home for, a lot of people. Anyway, it's horrible. So there's a nonprofit in the UK that serves serves trans youth called Mermaids that got a government grant. This guy led a charge to have it investigated and shut down or the money taken away or something. And in response, a games critic who goes by hbomberguy just started streaming himself playing the notoriously difficult game Donkey Kong 64. And he said he was going to 100% it, which means he's going to do everything in the game. Virtually, it is a miserable experience to try to do this, but it's kind of a joke to be like, I'm going to put myself through this. Literally, he said, to spite Graham Linehan and raise money as he's doing it for mermaids. So it took him something like 50 something hours to 100% this game, streaming with like some naps here and there. And just live streaming himself, and one thing leads to another, and it gets more and more popular, and more people see it. He is relatively, H. Bomberman is relatively high profile, but like bigger and more high profile people started coming into the stream. I was at PodCon while this was happening, so I was just checking Twitter, and every now and then I saw, Chelsea Manning has joined the stream. That's exciting. Jim Sterling, who's like a pretty prominent games journalist. Laura Kate Dale has joined the stream. That's really exciting. Then I saw Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez join the stream. What? That's bananas, but okay.
Bananas, because
it's Donkey Kong.
She's the only reason this came on my radar and actually knew about it, because Chelsea Manning might have come up in a news story, but
suddenly a member of Congress is doing this. Not only coming into the stream, and the stream raised something like, I was around $350,000 for this charity, which is just amazing and life-changing. But she comes into the stream to talk about economic inequality, to talk about trans rights being human rights, and then also to talk about why the N64 is her favorite game console. It was an extremely genuine, wonderful moment to hear this wonderful person like making time in her day to do something awesome.
Is she old enough for N64? She's like 29, right?
Oh, she's got to be. Well, maybe she is 29.
Yeah,
I think so she would have been a kid. Like N64 was like late 90s, so
I had Atari when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, I had a Pong machine when I was a kid, but I wasn't a fan. We had newer shit that was better.
Strong words from Mike Johnson in our episode about gaming. Did you know Pong was a symbolism of heterosexuality?
Yeah, especially because I got that console from my uncle.
Was he a heterosexual?
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
Ugh.
Toxic masculinity right there.
I think that's awesome. Like more people making genuine. I'm surprised more people don't do that. Like she's like great at the digital space and how to use that, but it's like that's like a digital forum of people that could be supporters or maybe already are supporters, and so I'm like, that seems like something more and more people need to catch on to, of people who are existing in these digital platforms, and go speak to them, and not just about like campaigning or combine it with other things like the issues they care about, plus like N64 is pretty sweet. Like,
and she's so good at it. Like I'm sure you've seen like her live streams, like her Instagram like live streams where she's like just cooking like mac and cheese or something and talking to people about tax rates. So I mean, she's just so good at being a person.
Yeah.
Is that why Elizabeth Warren tried to be all chill and have a bear with her husband in the kitchen?
Yeah, bless him. I think it's very nice to see, that a lot of like Democrats who may not have wanted to or may not have had the interest to meet younger people in that space are seeing that, okay, this is where it's headed.
Do you think our Twitter, our Instagram is like Elizabeth Warren having beers with her husband on Instagram? Do we come across that way of like, these people are trying to we're so bad, or we don't know what we're doing on Instagram, so sometimes I'm like, here's a picture of a shoe.
Ever since I turned 40, I just like, fuck it, I have no idea what's going on. This is your job.
I know, and I don't know.
Millennial.
I don't know pictures. I don't do this. Man, me and Elizabeth Warren, we're pretty similar. This is just one of those ways. Okay, but since we started talking about it, what is your favorite console?
Oh gosh, that's really tough. This is going to be controversial, but I really like the GameCube. It was not. It was not a popular.
That's the Kia Soul of gaming devices.
Is that the one that looks like a refrigerator?
It's like a cube, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like just boxy and like it's just a punching bag for.
So I like my aesthetic taste, just in terms of like design of these things. I like, what's that car, the Aztec, the one that looks like two different teams started designing it from either end and met in the middle. So I like things that like have a surprising look about them. The GameCube was a great design. It was made to be like a toy, like a lunchbox, and it wasn't what was cool at the time. Like, it came at a time when gamers were. It was all about like muted camouflage colors and army guys and shooting and big boobs and stuff like that. And there was a lot of like macho posturing in gaming at the time. And the GameCube was cute and it was fun and it was adorable and you could like play Animal Crossing on it. And there were a lot of good ideas with that console. I think it looked great, and I think they did a lot of great stuff. And I think the Mario Kart Double Dash, no, it wasn't. Was it Double Dash? It was. Is one of my favorite Mario Karts. I'm very competitive when it comes to Mario Kart. I'm not really in practice right now, but there was a period where I would have to go. I could only play online late at night when there were more players from Korea and Japan on, because American players were not challenging for me. So I was deeply invested in Mario Kart for a long time. And Double Dash, I think, did a lot of very exciting things.
Mike, what was yours?
I mean, in terms of gaming, I've done a lot more on PC than anything else throughout the years.
I was going to guess PC for you.
But that's also not a console.
You can pick whatever you want.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Super Nintendo, mostly because we had NES for however many years, for probably like 83 to 87-ish. I'm guessing Super Nintendo was right in that zone that it came out. And it was just such a leap forward. Mm-hmm. Like, it didn't feel like just recycled arcade games, and it was so much better in terms of graphics and performance than the old Famicom NES was. And and at that stage in my life, I was just so impressed. I was this wide-eyed, holy shit, this is amazing 9 or 10-year-old. So I loved it. That's
one that I still have a fondness for. I didn't like keep going like after basically high school of playing too many video games, but I do every now and then. But since you stole Super Nintendo, maybe the TI-83 calculators where you could play Snake.
Yeah. Okay.
I just recently looked up playing Snake again, and you can just like it's so basic that like the Google result is the Snake game. You just play it right within Google because they're like, we can just serve this to you right here,
here you go.
right now. And then I started playing that for a while. I think that I was inspired when I saw someone play like the perfect game of Snake, and it was just like so like soothing to see it like just retrace its own body segments and like pick it up and go around. Yeah. Maybe I'll live stream myself playing Snake for 50 hours to raise money for dinner.
Do a little fundraiser.
Yeah.
So I'm going to watch a stream and I'm going to give money because it's going to a charity. I get. Can somebody please explain to me why people can make so much money just playing video games and people just give them money? Like, this is their life. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. You've said before that you like watching video games because your older brother was a terrible person and would never let you play, so you just got used to watching or whatever. That's my paraphrase. That's my paraphrase of your situation.
It was just like, as the younger brother, you're very used to like, oh, you go first, and then like sometimes you never get a turn, and then you're just like, eventually it just becomes like, no, I'd rather watch because GoldenEye scares me because they might jump out and shoot me. Like, you just kind of or like getting made fun of for falling down the whatever thing you're not supposed to. I tried to play Halo once, and I fell off the plane or whatever after a few minutes into outer space.
I mean, is it the non-video game portion of it that they're like? Is it basically Patreon for this podcast, but they get to watch the podcaster playing a video game while it's happening? Because it does seem to be about personality.
Yeah, I mean, if you think it's crazy that people will pay money to watch someone play a video game, wait until you find out about this thing called sports.
Right.
I mean, that's what it boils down to. Is it's a more intimate version of watching football. You have a much more direct connection with the personality that's playing. And you get to watch them do something skillful, or sometimes not, but you get to watch them do something that you think is fun. Often they are much better at it than you, and it's fun to watch somebody be really good at something. And also to be able to type little chat things to them. I mean, imagine if, like, I say this as somebody who has zero relationship with any sort of, like, physical activity, but imagine how cool it would be if, like, I don't know, you're watching, like, a tennis game, and you can type a little message, and the tennis player is like, hey, thanks. You know, you can see you in real time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it boils down to. We've done live streams with Queens of Adventure. We did a live stream to benefit Seattle Children's Hospital. We have some live streams that we're planning to do later this year. And I think a big part of it is just, I like these people. There are a lot of streamers that I watch. I like these people. It's fun to see them. It's fun to say hello and to see them having a good time. And that's it.
I feel like, so I've watched, what did you have me watch? Harmon Quest. Mm-hmm. And that to me was like, one, I think watching a collaborative storytelling game can, at least for me, like feels more like a story that you're all in together versus like, you know, running around in the video game. I don't respond to as much, but like, you know, storytelling plus then you have your celebrities that you like that, like, then it's kind of funny. So I feel like I can connect to at least that portion of it, and knowing that, like, you know, comedy plus storytelling is what I'm interested in, I can find that, then I can kind of get into the understanding of, and people that who actually are really passionate about these games, you know, seeing someone do it amazingly or even terribly and funnily could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's the strength of the personality, I think, that really drives that stuff.
Every child's dream to just get paid to play video games for a living.
Yeah.
And these people are doing it.
Well, here's the thing, is they're not actually getting paid to play video games. They're being paid to entertain. And the video games are sort of a MacGuffin into that. It's a thing to do. And it's super relatable because their viewers like to play video games too. But, you know, you can't just go on and play a video game and be popular. You have to be on. You have to be a personality. You have to be the kind of person that's engaging and exciting and entertaining that you know, that people want to watch. And so I think that accounts for why the figures who are popular or successful in that are successful in that. They are giving people something they want. Something fun that they can relate to.
Sounds exhausting.
Patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
This has been a very long ad. Now to the podcast episode. We put background music behind that whole thing. Mike, did you have something you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about.
You seem like maybe not. Did you bring something?
I did,
Okay.
but it's just the conversation has taken such a different tack than maybe I thought it was going to, or whatever, and I'm good with that. I wanted to talk about historically, like, queer content, especially way back in the day, and a couple of specific examples that I think are interesting. The first is Birdo. Have you studied the Birdo
complex figure? Yeah.
Brouhaha. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Doesn't he have a giant thing beak that he spits eggs out through?
Exactly right. Yep. Birdo is a character that was created for Super Mario 2, the last Mario to appear on the NES, I think. Nope. Mario 3 was on NES. Anyway, so the thing, I'll show you the picture from
I don't know any of the complexities about Birdo.
So the thing is, in the manual for the game.
Oh, thanks, Dan. It's a little cute little pink thing with a big open dick-sucking nose and a red bow on her head.
In the first manual, it said Birdo was called Ostro in the very first draft of it.
Not super original
1988.
names, if we're really okay.
But it says he thinks he is a girl and he spits eggs from his mouth. He'd rather be called Birdetta. And that began this whole long legacy of, is Birdo trans? Is Birdo the first trans character in video games, and was it intentional?
When did this happen? When is this game?
87, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
88. This is 88, 87, 88,
Okay.
that zone. And so
I was just thinking the phrase wants to be a girl, like nowadays that is something that like would be very like,
Well, you wouldn't phrase it that way.
yeah,
no.
exactly. But in the 80s, there's still like at that time there's still even people we may call trans today that would call themselves transsexual or transvestite or all these different words. So I was trying to figure out how, if that was that use of the phrase was like socially relevant at the time or terrible, and it seems like more.
Well, and especially in the 80s, all of this is being filtered through a Japanese to English translation, which was just all your base are belong to us tells us just how awful of a process that could be sometimes. But he is also an enemy. There's that the gay person is always the villain. The queer character is always the villain thing that we've seen in our discussions about movies. Later versions of Mario games that had Birdo in it, they refer to her as her. So it's only in that first game where they are referring to her as he and that he wants to be a girl. So there's even this whole like fan fiction theory about Birdo had gender reassignment surgery. Yeah. And it's highly unlikely that any of this is actually intended by Nintendo.
No. I think Birdo is just too problematic a figure to really be looked at in a warm light. The phrasing in the manual, the translation issues. I believe Ostro was actually, it was an error that the name Ostro was attached to Birdo. It was never supposed to be. It was supposed to be a different character. At this point, it's just too messy, I think, to look at. And plus, Nintendo's insistence now that Birdo is just a lady character, and that's the end of the story. I think we have, like I was saying earlier, I think we have better headcanon now than the company is willing to provide, so let's just go with that.
Yeah. That's interesting, because you've, even mistakes or something that someone plugs in there are opportunities if people are connecting to it to expand on it and grow it and make it part of it, weird connection. Like Subaru was oh, lesbians actually love our car, so let's start advertising to them and donate to LGBT stuff. And there's ways to take things that weren't intentional and then turn them into a really positive thing. Yeah,
Nintendo's still doing a pretty poor job at it. There was just an issue where they have a power-up for Toadette that, I may have this a little bit backwards, but I believe they have a crown that Toadette can get that turns her into Peachette, where she's a more human-looking version of Toadette. And so there was, but it also looks like Peach. It's sort of a mix of Toadette and Peach. And so there was some interest online of well, what if Bowser put the crown on? Would Bowser become a peachy version of Bowser?
Oh.
And so Nintendo, after this happened, Nintendo put something out online where they were talking some supplemental thing about the crown, where they were it only works on Toadette, and then in parentheses, sorry, Luigi. What is that? Sorry, Luigi supposed to mean? And so people took that to, and ran with it, and they're oh, now it means Luigi is trans. Luigi wants to express as a woman, and I think I'm happy about that headcanon. But my interpretation was Luigi has a crush on Bowsette, who we're calling Bowsette, and Luigi was hoping that Bowser would become more feminine presenting. I don't know. This is all my own story, but it's mine and I own it.
I don't know where I'm getting this from. So if it's just fucking invented, you'll have to tell me. And hasn't Luigi always had gay rumors and been made fun of for it? I feel like that was a thing from way early on.
Is Luigi the Robin of the Mario Brothers?
Yeah. He's the tall, goofy one.
I'm trying to connect these things to things I understand. So
he's taken a sort of a sidekick role to Mario. I mean, it kind of sucks that they're the Mario Brothers, and it's so does that mean he's Luigi Mario? Is that his name? So poor Luigi has always been sort of the hapless sidekick. And so, especially when you look back at Birdo, like you were saying, when it came out in 86 or what was it, 87, 88, that was a time when doing anything that was genderqueer, certainly served to other someone in a way that felt villainous. And so oh, they're, not conforming to traditional gender roles. That means they must be bad or creepy or weird. So I think it's easy to align, or at least easier-ish to align Luigi, the underdog, as and he's gay, or just something like that. He's got all these misfortunes, because he's also presented as being kind of a scaredy cat, because in Luigi's Mansion, when he's being scared by ghosts. So there are, I think you could draw some Venn diagrams of queer signifiers and Luigi signifiers.
Luigi signifiers.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the pansy character in Luigi's Mansion, even though it's named for him, but he's so scared of those ghosts.
Yep. Absolutely.
I didn't even know he had a mansion.
Yep.
Good for him. At
doing
today's
well.
real estate prices.
Yeah.
Well, how about other examples? Like one thing I have to talk about is the end of the original Metroid.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And how I think, although not specifically queer, that had a lot to say about our assumptions about gender and what it means and who you really can be. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
So,
Metroid.
Metroid, you're in this like power suit, and you go around and you're kicking ass, and you get power ups, and
power
you,
bottom.
you kill Metroids, and you're after Mother Brain, who is the big bad of the series, and then you go through it.
Are you making this up right now? No. This all sounds like okay. You get power ups and beat a brain. Okay.
At the very end of the game, you take your helmet off. And these long flowing locks of red hair come out, and you shake your head. You've been a woman the whole time.
Oh,
and
Dan is showing me the very sexy red haired,
Very practical outfit.
bikini clad lady that.
But
and then up top is that like what you look
armor,
like?
Yeah.
But there's there's a whole generation of Nintendo playing cis straight men out there who I think would have that in their head as a really powerful indicator that you can't assume, and that, oh my god, I was a chick the whole time and I'm okay. It's okay for that to have been the case because the game was still fun.
Yeah.
I also think that there's something a little bit problematic about that in the way that it's framed as you only get that ending if you do like really well in the game. That's like your reward for like, accomplishing everything. And so presenting a female body as a trophy is an ongoing issue with video games.
So unless I'm mistaken, you mean when she takes everything off and is super naked.
Yeah.
You're right. If you get less than awesome and you just finish the game, she takes off her helmet and nothing else. So regardless of which ending you get, it's made clear that you were a female the whole time. And then you're right. It's super problematic that if you make all the points, then you get to see her naked, which that's just bro-y bullshit.
But yeah, it is exciting that we did have Samus like back then to be at least not just a strong female character, but also a character that challenged assumptions. So good for that, and I think we do even better now.
But I mean, that like just reminds me of like in history, and I don't even have a specific example of like when women were trying to make it in a male field, like having to pretend to be like the way we have a strong female character. She literally covers herself up so no one can see that she's female. So they'll play it. So that feels like very relevant. Or
yeah. I mean, if it'd been advertised, if you had like a lady hero on the cover, like if you had like a figure like Rey, for example, on the cover. I think at the time there would have been a lot of dissatisfaction with that, and I think even today, like, I don't know, it's actually getting better because you have like Lara Croft, for example, is not the triangle boobed figure that she was 20 years ago. Yeah, really, 20? Yeah, I guess a little more. Yikes! Now she's presented as a much more complex figure in the newer games, and great. That's awesome.
Other early examples, like I have
not good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't research this. What?
Well, one that a little more recent, The Sims, to me was a video game that I connected with that then also had the ability to like do all these interactions with another dude, and
Men can get pregnant in The Sims now.
You can't wait. Who can't? Like
men can.
Men can. Yes. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I haven't played in a while. I like sometimes pick it up on my iPad, but then they're doing the things where like you either pay or wait, and then I get tired. I remember I started playing that in high school, and then all of a sudden heard that, well, the gay kid in high school really likes The Sims, so that was one of the first times like my brother's friends like joked about, well, I better watch out because I might be gay.
Yeah.
And I think I was reading like they were worried about like, no, like men aren't even going to play this game, and then like started realizing that there are like other people out there that play video games that aren't like cis straight white dudes. So that's one that I can actually connect with, that like it's less of like I don't like games where I like go around and shoot people because that scares me. There's very few jump scares in The Sims. Maybe when you catch the fish sometimes you reel it in, and that surprises me, but other than that,
you might like Animal Crossing, you might like Stardew Valley.
Okay.
Stardew Valley is great. You'll
games.
hate it.
Okay.
I also don't like things where you like pick up blocks and chisel them and then make a house out of them.
I don't
and
like crafting games and what?
You might like Hearthstone. It's kind of Magic the Gathering, but cute.
I played Magic the Gathering growing up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hearthstone's fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Any final sentiments on Gaymers?
Yeah, I'm all for them. I'm in favor.
I do too.
Resolved.
Mike, are you supportive? Do you support queer people playing video games?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Go have fun.
I'm also supportive of tricking straight people into playing queer characters.
Tricking straight people's funny. Yeah. Do you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break and play a game.
Seem to be very like, yeah, let's take a break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back. We take silly breaks that we don't know why we do it, but we're committed now. We're 100 plus in, and we're committed. We're going to do our gayest and straightest.
We're going to do our gayest and straightest, but first,
Matt Baume.
Hi.
Hi.
where can people find out about you?
So, best place to follow all my various exploits is on Twitter. It's just my name, twitter.com/Matt Baume, MattBaume. And that's got all my stuff. But you can also go to my various projects. So there is Queens of Adventure, a Dungeons and Dragons podcast featuring drag queens playing D&D, going on adventures and being super queer. That's at queensofadventure.com. There's my podcast, The Sewers of Paris, where I talk to queer people about entertainment that's changed their lives. I had Dan Savage on. I had Bruce Valanche on, which was very fun. We talked about the Star Wars Holiday Special, which he wrote. We had a bunch of Drag Race girls come through. And then we just had regular folks pop by to talk about their lives. Oh, I just did an interview with Indigo Blue, who's a local burlesque performer and teacher, talking all about like her background, like basically putting herself through school as a stripper, getting her anthropology degree in permeable and semi-permeable boundaries in sex work. So she's fascinating.
Wow.
We didn't even talk about her time in leading a lesbian resistance movement in Kenya. So she's a deeply, deeply interesting person. Anyway, that's at sewersofparis.com. What else have I got? Oh, gosh. Over on YouTube, I've got Culture Cruise, where I do these like deep dives looking at queer themes in TV shows and in movies. I just did one about Murphy Brown. Murphy Brown had 2 gay episodes back in the 90s and a gay-ish storyline in the reboot. So I literally like take like clips and do sort of like talking about him, and I'm like, look at this great joke from Murphy Brown. It's actually a joke that they stole from Frasier 3 years earlier. And, you know, play like, put gay clips side by side and talk about like what the cultural context was at the time, what was happening in the news. I'm about to put up an episode of about Quantum Leap. Quantum Leap had an episode about gays in the military in 1992, but because the show was set in the past, it was set in 1964, but really it was about gays in the military when the show was made in 1992.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also would leap into the bodies of women,
from time to time, yeah.
fairly regularly.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting thing for to be on TV
and once
at that
into
stage.
the body of a monkey.
Yeah. Legit.
No.
It was a dumb show.
Was it a monkey or was it an ape?
It was technically a chimpanzee.
we need to really get specific on this issue right here.
Was it a bonobo?
So that's Culture Cruise. That's on YouTube. You can just search for Matt Baume Culture Cruise. And then I've got Weekly Debrief, which is a weekly roundup of queer news. Like 2-3 minutes. I talk about major headlines, and then there's an action item for things people can do to make a difference.
Awesome. So kind of like just get on the internet.
Yeah,
and
I'm there.
Probably
You'll find me eventually.
Nice. For Gayish,
Our website is gayishpodcast.com.
join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Gayish podcast, and a bunch of other social media at Gayish podcast.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages, leave us voicemails. Dick pics are allowed. It's 585-5-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply.
Allowed. Also, Mike tends to encourage them, so
Yeah,
we'll see.
To limited success.
And our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com. All right, so we're going to do our gayest and straightest. Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure. So this is something like super gay about me?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then something super straight about you.
There's not much. So I gave a lot of thought to this. I literally just finished knitting the scarf that I'm wearing right now. I was like, that's kind of gay. But I think one of the like most stereotypically queer things that I do is like my obsession with like weird media and like camp, basically, like campy culture. I'm just obsessed with. We were talking about this earlier off mic, like bad movies or strange commercials from the 1970s, or like divas of the 1940s. You know, that episode of The Simpsons where John Waters shows up and he's like really into like weird campy stuff.
What did you call that? What, ephemera culture?
Yeah, ephemera.
Ephemera.
Cultural ephemera. So yeah, I just love that stuff. Like, I'm really into, there's this great commercial for a perfume or men's, what is it called? It's a cologne. That was, stars Charles Bronson, action hero of the 60s, I think, 70s, 80s. And this, we're going like deep down a rabbit hole here, but it was directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi, who's the director of the movie House, a Japanese film that we're talking about. So he made this commercial, stars Charles Bronson. It's like the super manly cologne, and it's so campy and stupid and over the top. It's made in like 75 or so, and has Charles Bronson like stripping his shirt, like just tearing his shirt off and spinning and like throwing the shirt off to the side and then just like dousing himself in this cologne like he's about to set himself on fire with it. And with each like shake of the bottle over his body, there's like the sound of a gunshot.
Oh, God.
It's so like stupidly over the top. And I just love stuff like that. I'm really into Lauren Bacall's coffee commercials from the 80s. Where it's so good. She like turns to the camera and she goes, "My favorite time of day is night. I just love curling up with a hot cup of what is it? High Point coffee. You think nighttime and coffee don't mix? And they do if it's a High Point. High Point has flavor, deep brewed flavor. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. It's just stupid commercial. I just like. It can't be weird, stupid stuff that you find on YouTube holes. That's my world.
My favorite time of day is night.
Yeah, it's such a good line. Oh God, she's got another one. She's like running out of a building to a limo. She's got like a fur coat on, and she's hustling out of the doors of this like luxury building into a limousine, and she stops and turns to the camera and she goes, "Rushing for an 8 p.m. curtain means giving up a lot of things, but coffee isn't one of them." And she gets into the limousine, and she's got like a full craft services carafe of coffee. Like she's gonna be serving like 60 Teamsters out of her limousine, and she's just like pumping the top and pouring mug after mug of High Point fucking coffee. It is amazing. I love this stuff so much. Yeah.
Okay, wait, that was your gayest.
Yeah.
You have to do a straightest now.
Yeah, and so my straightest thing, this is a hard one for me because I don't have much.
Yeah.
I don't like to see or be seen by heterosexuals, but I am fairly handy with like fix-it stuff. So my partner is horrified by this, but like I grow food, and he's like, "I'm not going to eat that. A bug might have walked on it." But like we've got a little garden out there, and there's centipedes in the garden. He's like not terrified, but he's like grossed out by the fact that like there's centipedes like crawling on the strawberries and that kind of thing. I fixed a lamp and like took off the fixture and like rewired it and took it apart and put it back together again, that kind of stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of gays who don't love to do like, I can change the spark plugs on a car, that kind of thing. And I think there's a stereotype that gays don't do that, but I do.
But that's all of the like. This section is just like, we're not supposed to do this stuff, but here we are.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go into mine then.
Okay.
Here I am dressing like shit. That's one of my. I have not used this in a while, but I was doing my laundry. And because I, like everyone else, wait until I'm like, oh, I don't have any clothes currently to wear, or I'll have to go into like the back and do the things that don't fit or are overly dressy. So I started doing my wash, and I was like picking out the things that I just wanted. And it was like, okay, black t-shirt, blue t-shirt, this old, thing from that high school thing that I don't care about, but this t-shirt is comfy. And it was just like the stack of things that were most important to me were just t-shirts and athletic shorts. And that would not be the stereotype of what you'd think a gay man's most important wardrobe items are.
At D&D last week, you told us you only own one pair of shorts, and now I can't unsee them.
I own two.
Oh, two. Okay, that's way better.
It's double the amount that you thought.
Well,
why?
Because
I like them.
But you're always in shorts.
Right, exactly.
So that means you're always in the same shorts.
Yeah.
Well, the same two pairs.
My mind is blown.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, maybe I'll just keep buying more versions of the same shorts.
Whatever works.
In What Not to Wear, Stacey and Clinton did say that buying multiple versions of like colors of the same item, like a lot of people would be like, that's so bad, they just have the same thing, but they recommended it. So that's not the gayest. That's not the straightest thing about me. But the gayest thing about me was I went to a friend's birthday party and we played some games like Pictionary and those kind of games, and like several of the games we chose were like, it was a mixture gay and straight people, and the games though were all like dirty games, like dirtier versions of games. And I feel like there's something about like when you're gay, it's just like understood that you're cool with like super like explicit or sexual or dirty games. And that like for me, if you've listened to this at all, you know I'm totally down and that's funny. But like, not just that association is really interesting that people have. Like, not every gay person would want to walk into a birthday party and draw like an orgy to get their team to guess it, or you know, what have you. So that's the gayest thing.
Okay, so the straightest thing about me this week, the bar down here at the bottom of the hill, the Dexter Brew House, the Mollusk, they lost their fight with their landlord over rent increases, and they're closing February 1st, next week.
Oh, no.
They went from just like open and my favorite place to fucking closed.
They have a great burger.
Yeah, their burger's great. They've been improving so much. Anyway, I feel like the level of sadness that I have about a bar going away feels very straight guy. Like you can cry when your mom dies or your dog dies or you lose your bar. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it feels pretty straight guy to be so up in arms about this bar going away.
Maybe they'll have like a, you know, like when at the end of like a donut shop when they're like closing up and they give out the donuts. Like maybe they'll like be handing out beer by the end.
I just come home with growler after growler of beer. That'd be great. You just cheered me up, Kyle. Thanks.
It's also very gay for a bar to close. I mean, like so many gay bars are going out of business. So there we go.
Oh, that's
it's true.
I didn't think about that.
Let's bring it down.
Yeah,
we're gonna chip in and buy Neighbors. That's our new big plan.
Oh yeah,
that's going up for sale.
Just nickels and dimes ought to do it, right?
What was that? It was like I can't remember the numbers. It was like 3.6 million for that building.
Almost 7 million.
Oh, okay, good, great. Okay, that's achievable.
Yeah. If we get
what would you build?
700 people, maybe just keep it Neighbors.
Yeah, why not?
Expand the alley for dick sucking or something.
Except I've heard that Neighbors is like, I haven't been in a long time, which is maybe the point, and that it's filled with straight people now.
Oh,
like Amazon Tech Bros have descended on it.
It's got its nights. I just went to the rugby team, did a fundraiser that was all drag. Irene Dubois does an all ages show on Thursday nights, I think. So it's got its nights, but yeah, you know, I think Seattle's gayborhood is in the process of transitioning from Capitol Hill to a new location that the straight people don't need to know about yet.
Okay, yep.
We're not revealing it on air.
Undisclosed neighborhood.
Defeats the purpose. We need to get established first.
I did at Neighbors meet an artist I really like, Curly, Kerli. She's amazing, and she like performed, and I was obsessed. And she walked by, and I was like, "I love you," and she was like, "Thank you," and then kept going because she was like, "Who's this crazy person?"
You're so chill about things.
I am so awkward when I meet people, especially like people that are fancy, and I'm like, "Hello, I like you." Kind of see. Okay, bye, and then they're walking away. Wait, what was your?
Oh yeah,
other thing.
The gayest thing about me this week, I watched every single episode of Sex Education, the Netflix show. It's real good. Gillian Anderson is in it, and it took me like until the second episode to realize that it was her because she's British and her accent is amazing and she's perfect and wonderful and I love her. Yeah, but the gayest part is not that I binge watched a show, but that maybe I did it because pretty much the whole first episode has this running thing about like this kid's gigantic penis, and they just by the end actually it's kind of sad because he goes on this whole like I want to be known for more than just having a massive dong, and like he's having real like feelings about it because he's also the principal's son, which is a big source of drama for him. Anyway, there's also a gay black kid in it that they really follow him and his story well, I thought, and his parents are immigrants to the UK from like think it was South Africa, they said. So there's the cultural differences between where they had come from and where they are now. And he gets beat up, and they have the whole drama about that. And then the main character, Asa Butterfield, he and this kid Eric are just best friends, and they never talk about the fact that one of them is gay. It is just they're best friends, and that's how it is. And they never approached the, I think, awkward, tropey storyline of Eric has feelings for him.
Yeah.
It just they don't go there, which is how I think it works in real life a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
Straight people and gay people can be friends. It's fine.
Yeah. I just think Gillian Anderson, like, I think lesbians love her.
Really?
Yeah. Scully did a lot for queer women.
Yeah. I've just seen some of my groups, people posting about, like, if I wasn't already into Gillian Anderson, here's Sex Education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's real good in it.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. Okay.
Great.
That's it.
This
has been Gayish. A special thank you, as always, to Charlie Finn for the use of our theme music.
And thank you to Matt Baume for being here.
Thanks so much. This was super fun.
Very educational. A lot of things I need to catch up on.
Yes. There's your homework.
Yeah.
Thank you to Nintendo? We talked about them a lot.
Sure, but they sound like they're not super down, so fuck you, Nintendo.
Let's say thanks to BioWare. BioWare is the company that made Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and they did a lot for gays in media, a lot for gays in games. So
BioWare. Thanks, BioWare.
Then did EA buy them?
Yep.
And then EI bought them and ruined them.
Well, that story hasn't been written, but it's been written about other companies many times before. So, well, they can't take, but you know what? They can't take our headcanon from us.
There you go. Thanks to the headcanon.
They can't buy the headcanon. There's no price on that.
And thanks to Head.
Okay. That's it. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See you next week.
See you next week. Go play a game. Right now.
Okay.
Stop listening and go play a video game.
Stop it.
And hear me as I will sing. Hey, and by the way, do you hear what your words bring? Oh, P.S. I'm gay-ish.
But, okay.
My asshole?
It's mine.
My asshole.
No, mine.
My asshole. Okay, great.